The verdict, viewers, is all out there to see. Clear win for Donald Trump. Far more than what many people predicted was a tight contest. This was anything but a tight contest. Complete mandate coming in for Donald Trump. And like I pointed out earlier, over the next 45 minutes, we are going to speak of that one factor which was deliberated amongst the most, the gender gap. How did the women vote? Did they actually come out in full support for Kamala Harris? And if they did, why didn't it reflect in the kind of numbers that we see stacking up where Kamala Harris is concerned? On the other hand, was it the young male voter who did it for Donald Trump? Well, the woman vote was a key factor that Team Kamala thought was her card to trump Donald Trump. While it might be too early to make any informed assessments as of now in terms of the numbers on how the women voted, but it does seem that women did show up for Kamala, but not possibly in the numbers she would have wanted. Initial reports suggest, after what is clearly a thumping and a far from close election, suggesting that black women did in fact get Kamala Harris's back. En masse voting for Kamala Harris is what we are being, what is being indicated right now. We're going to put out the figures that are coming in slowly right now, trickling in. What we are also given to understand, white college-educated women did vote in huge numbers for Kamala Harris. The demographic that let her down were the white women who did not have a college degree. The Democrats gained a few points amongst white voters, primarily women, after Trump carried white women by 11 points in 2020. Harris narrowed it down, the gap, to about 5 points. Now, according to the NBC News exit poll, Biden beat Trump by 9 points among white women with the college degrees 4 years ago. Harris expanded that advantage to 20 points. But Harris' edge amongst women this year did not exceed either President Joe Biden's or former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's, a troubling sign for the vice president, given that she tried to mobilize female voters, especially on the issue of body rights, abortion. Preliminary results from exit poll data, which may change and have changed a little as real-time data trickles in. But let's just hark back to that. Nationally, Harris had a 10-point advantage with women, 54% where Harris was concerned, 44% where Trump was concerned. But her support was of a slim 3-point from President Joe Biden's support with the group in 2020. Trump, meanwhile, was leading by an identical 10-point margin amongst young men. Now, there was also a huge gender gap between young men, who were roughly split between Harris and Trump, 49%, 47%, and young women who back Harris by 26%. We'll also break it down in terms of the real-time data as it trickles in just a short while, but I want to immediately cut across to my colleague Shashank Mattu, who's going to try and decipher for us, because something, Shashank, what was much talked about, especially to the run-up to the mother of all elections, was the gender gap. Where women were concerned was one of the key factors that Kamala Harris was banking on. And then, of course, the bro vote, where it came down to Donald Trump.
No, absolutely. You're absolutely right. That was the key issue that was being debated at all times. People said that, look, if Kamala Harris is going to have to win this election, she's going to have to do it on the back of the women vote. Unfortunately for her, those votes have not materialized. You look at the disaggregated data, and what comes through very clearly is that white women, which were really a vote bank that she needed to win, she actually lost to Trump by 5 points. She did better than Joe Biden did in the past. But that was the only segment really among women that she really performed well as white women with more education. But that's not enough. That's not what you need to win this presidential campaign. In fact, what we're seeing across the board is that she lost support among women with minority backgrounds. So black women turned out a great deal to vote for her, but Latino women and Asian women, there were declines in that level of support that Joe Biden won in 2020. And Kamala Harris, this is a big blow for her, because one of the big pillars of her campaign, alongside keeping democracy strong as well as a new, positive, optimistic future for America, was abortion rights. And across the board, you see, whether it's Christian women, married women, women, even moderate women who supported abortion rights, Kamala Harris just did not manage to get the level of support that she needed to win this presidential election. So that's a major failure. And more broadly, it has repercussions for the Democrats as well, because, 16 years ago, Barack Obama rode to power, became president of the United States on the back of this new coalition. He made the Democrats relevant again by getting young voters together, women voters, minorities. That was his massive coalition, and he hardly broke a sweat when he won his 2 election campaigns. Unfortunately, you see that held up for Kamala Harris, and now that's why you're seeing the Democrats are in a bit of disarray at this point in time, trying to figure out what exactly has gone wrong, why they've not got enough support among women, why they've not got as much support among minorities, the kind of numbers that they hope to get, and that is going to be a moment of great soul searching for the Democratic Party.
All right, Shashank, stay with me because let's look at, some of the real-time data that is filtering in right now. Ian Bremmer, political scientist, just a short while ago put out some numbers, some data. And let's take a quick look. How did the white men vote this time around in U.S. presidential elections 2024? And viewers, this is what it looks like where the white men vote was concerned. Just pulling out the data, putting the numbers right here. All right, we're going to just, get in the numbers there, how the white men voted. Well, white men voted 34%. We're going to just get our numbers there. 34% for 39% for Kamala Harris and 59% for Donald Trump. This is how white men in America voted. Clearly, you can see that huge rise coming in for Donald Trump. A huge chunk of that, viewers, is the young male voter. Many political analysts calling it the Yamavo factor, which propelled Donald Trump to scripting the kind of win that he did. All right, so I want to quickly bring in Shashank Mattu back into this conversation. Shashank, there was a clear trust by, Team Trump to reach out to the young male voter, possibly insignificant in past elections because traditionally we've seen the under 30, male voter not really coming out and casting their ballot. This time around, they've been, they possibly could have propelled the kind of victory that President Trump is seeing.
Right, absolutely. I think Donald Trump's whole idea during this election has been to capitalize on young men. They're falling behind across economic and social indicators, education indicators as well. And one of the big problems for Trump has been to make sure that he can capitalize on a lot of that discontent among young men. Now, what we're seeing is that Harris has only won among 18 to 29 young men, but across the board, you look at male voters and they have chosen Donald Trump by some pretty overwhelming margins. In fact, something that has come as a hammer blow to the Democratic Party in this election is that Latino men, a group of men, Hispanic Americans that used to constitute a massive reliable voting bloc for the Democratic Party have actually broken for Trump by around 54-55%. That is such a massive shift for the Democratic Party. I know Indian viewers don't often track US politics, but this was absolutely core to that election coalition that the Democratic Party had done. So that is absolutely the key for the Democrats. They have not been able to get young men in the numbers that they had hoped. They have not got black men in the numbers that they have hoped. Like I said, Latin American men. So that exactly has been a major point of that social coalition.
Shashank, let's look into the other factors now. How did the black men vote? Many thought that possibly that vote could have been splintered, but it does seem, and we're giving out those numbers there where black men are concerned. The black community seems to have rallied behind where Kamala Harris is concerned. 78% of black women have voted for Kamala Harris, with just 20% of them voting where Donald Trump is concerned. From black women, let's quickly move on to black women. From black men, moving on to how black women have voted in this election. Let's quickly look at the numbers there. Kamala Harris again, 92%. That's it, viewers. Look at that detailing there. 92% of black women have voted for Kamala Harris. Women were the centerpiece of Kamala Harris's campaign, and at least where black women were considered, they've delivered. But really, it wasn't enough because just 8% of black women voting for Donald Trump. Let's look at Latino, Hispanic now. Well, in that, let's quickly move on and get in the other demographics. Hispanic, Latino men, 44% for Kamala Harris. Donald Trump takes it at 54%. This was also a community which was targeted by Donald Trump, especially where the young Latino Hispanic vote was concerned, and it's reflecting in the 54% right there.